When corporate life finally ended for me, it didn't end with any special moment. No final presentation, no farewell lunch with champagne and awkward speeches, no dramatic exit through revolving doors into sunlight. It ended with a very quiet setting. The last day bled into the first day after without ceremony. One evening, I closed my laptop for the final time, not knowing it was the final time. And the next morning, no calendar notifications appeared. No emails demanded response. No meetings waited in a queue. Just silence. Not empty silence. Not lonely silence. But the quiet of a room after guests have left, still holding the warmth of their presence, but finally, blessedly, still. I expected to feel loss, a hollowing, a disorientation, the vertigo of identity untethered from title and routine. What I felt instead was space. Not emptiness, but spaciousness, like stepping outside after years in a room with low ceilings. The air felt different in my lungs. Time moved differently in my hands. And for the first time in decades, a morning arrived that belonged to no one but me. That space wasn't given to me. It was revealed, like a landscape uncovered when floodwaters recede. And in that space, something long and dormant began to stir. Distance changes how you see things, not because the past changes, but because your eyes do. Inside corporate life, everything feels urgent. A missed deadline feels like failure. A misread email feels like rupture. A restructuring feels like a verdict. The pressure isn't just external, it seeps inward until you begin measuring your own worth in quarterly increments. Decisions feel permanent. Pressure feels personal. The narrative you are living inside feels like the only narrative possible, but with distance, weeks, then months, then the gentle turning of seasons, urgency softens. Not because what happened didn't matter, but because you can finally see its true scale. What once felt defining begins to look directional. Important at the time, yes. Necessary even, but not permanent. Not identity. Just a path you walked for a season. I didn't lose myself in my career. I postponed myself. Not all at once, not with conscious surrender, but in 1,000 small accommodations. The hobby set aside until things calm down, the boundary not voiced because everyone is stretched thin, the intuition quieted because the data said otherwise, and the data was easier to defend. And the moment I stepped away, not dramatically, not defiantly, just away, I could finally feel who was still there beneath the roles I had worn. Not the manager, not the problem solver, not the steady hand everyone relied on. Just me. Quieter than I remembered, softer at the edges, but present. like a song you haven't heard in years that suddenly returns to you whole, note for note when you least expect it. That was the gift of distance, not forgetting what happened, but remembering who you were before it happened, and discovering with quiet wonder who you might become after. What surprised me most, and what still surprises me, was how little I missed the things I once believed were essential. The titles that once felt like armor, I didn't miss them at all. The meetings that consumed hours, I felt no pull to return to their rhythms. The constant evaluation, the subtle competition for visibility, the quiet anxiety of, am I doing enough? All of it dissolved like mist in morning light. What I did miss were the people who saw me as a person, not a role. The colleague who asked about my mother's health after I had mentioned it once, 6 months prior. The junior team member who stayed late, not because I asked, but because she believed in what we were building, and brought me tea while we worked. The mentor who, in a 15-minute hallway conversation, saw a fear I hadn't named, and said simply that you don't have to carry this alone. Those moments weren't on any performance review. They didn't constitute business objectives, but they were the quiet architecture of meaning, the human threads that made the structure bearable. Corporate life is very good at keeping you busy enough that you don't ask bigger questions. It fills your calendar until reflection feels like indulgence. It rewards motion until stillness feels like failure. It trains you to measure your days in outputs until you forget to ask, what is this all for? Leaving gave me those questions back, not as accusations, not as regrets, but as gentle invitations. What do you want your attention to build? Who do you want to become when no one is evaluating you? What does a life well lived look like? Not on a resume, but in the quiet moments no one sees. And for the first time in 42 years, I could answer them without consequences, without filtering my truth through the lens of organizational alignment, without softening my desires to fit a predetermined path. That freedom to ask without fear, to answer without calculation, was worth more than any title I had ever held. For a long time, I measured success by endurance, by how much pressure I could absorb without buckling, by how many plates I could keep spinning while others added more, by how long I could stay functional in systems that demanded more than they replenished. Success was a test of stamina, and I passed year after year, until I no longer recognized the person taking the test. Now, success looks quieter. It has no audience, no metrics, no external validation. It looks like choosing rest without earning it first, lying down at late hours in the day because my body asked for stillness, not because I had earned a break through sufficient productivity. It looks like Mornings that don't belong to anyone else. Waking without an alarm. Making coffee slowly. Reading poetry instead of emails. Letting the day unfold without a plan imposed from outside. It looks like saying no without justification, not as rebellion, but as stewardship. Knowing that every yes to something that doesn't nourish me is a quiet theft from what might actually do so. Most of all, success now looks like knowing, not believing, not hoping, but knowing that my worth was never something I needed to prove, only something I needed to remember, like a birthright misplaced but never revoked, like a name you have forgotten how to pronounce, but that still belongs to you. This isn't a rejection of ambition, it is a reclamation of scale. Ambition has its place, but not at the center of a life. At the center belongs something quieter. It's called peace, presence, the gentle certainty that you are enough, not because of what you produce, but because you exist. There are things I would never trade again. Not out of bitterness, not as indictment, but as boundary, drawn gently, with the wisdom of hindsight. I would never trade my time, without intention, without asking, is this exchange worthy of my one irreplaceable life? Time given freely is generosity. Time given by default is slow erosion. I would never trade my voice for comfort, for the ease of not disrupting a room, for the safety of being liked rather than understood. My voice is not always right, but it is always mine. And silence purchased with authenticity is a currency that compounds in regret. I would never trade my intuition for approval. That quiet inner knowing that something is misaligned, even when all the data says to proceed. I spent years mistrusting that whisper, because it couldn't be graphed or justified in a business case. But intuition is not irrational, it's pre-rational. It's the sum of everything you have lived, speaking before your mind has words for it. Corporate life taught me discipline, how to show up when motivation fades, how to structure chaos into deliverables, how systems move, where the levers are, who holds them, what happens when they are pulled. But leaving taught me something far more important, that my life was always bigger than the system I worked inside, that I was never a rusted gear, even a well-oiled essential one. I was a human being, passing through a structure built by other humans for human purposes that shift with time. And no structure, not even a good one, deserves the entirety of a human soul. I don't regret my career. I don't romanticize it. I don't resent it. I hold it with the complexity it deserves. It shaped me, forged resilience I didn't know I possessed. It supported me, provided stability that let me build a life beyond work. It challenged me, exposed me to problems that stretched my mind and heart in ways I couldn't have engineered alone. But it does not define me. And that distinction between what shapes you and what defines you is something you only understand when you are finally on the other side, like standing on a shore after a long sea voyage. You carry the salt on your skin. You hear the rhythm of waves in your bones, but your feet are on solid ground now, and the horizon ahead is not water, but possibility. And if there's one quiet truth worth carrying forward, for those still inside, for those on the edge, for those newly free, it's this: no chapter deserves your entire life. Not corporate life, not any single role, not even a calling. Some chapters are meant to be lived fully, with presence, with integrity, with everything you have to give. And then they are meant to be left behind, not with shame, not with failure, but with gratitude for what they held, and courage for what comes next. Your life is not a ladder to climb. It is a landscape to inhabit. And you are allowed, you are meant to move through its seasons with grace, to build, to rest, to leave what no longer fits, to begin again, not as a lesser version of who you were, but as a truer version of who you have become. That is not an ending. It is a homecoming, and it has been waiting for you all along. This is another thread in the quiet tapestry of 42 years of work, not offered as advice, not wrapped in regret, not as a mistake I needed to undo, just shared as something that became clear once I stopped filling every silence and learned to listen to what remained.